Lewis Hamilton has had a mighty career in Formula 1, from 7 world titles and joining 3 of Formula 1's biggest teams. So I thought, why not replay Lewis Hamilton's entire career and start from the very beginning and see what teams we join, what rivals we have, and how much success we can get over the entire career mode, and if we can match that 7 world titles. So Lewis Hamilton's career started with a few offers, but the team I felt was the best fit for us, and one Hamilton has never raced for in real life, was Williams. Another British-based team like McLaren he started his career at, and of course managed by the amazing James Vowles. I felt we could get much more comfortable being in the UK and would help bring us success much earlier. Luckily, at the start of season 1, Williams wasn't that far down in the order and was rather a solid midfield team with a potential to score some regular points. Partnering an experienced Spaniard of Sainz like Hamilton did in his first year with Alonso meant it was going to be a hard test for us for our first year in Formula 1. The first race of the season at Australia started really promising, with getting into Q3 and out qualifying Sainz with our first attempt. A solid start to the race, but a mistake hitting into the back of UK sent our race spiraling and out of the points into 15th, while Sainz finished in an amazing P6 for the team. We could take some positives away from that weekend with our pace, but we needed to fix them mistakes. Luckily at Bahrain, the race after, we did manage to score our first points of the season, and in some spectacular fashion, getting an amazing P5 in qualifying, absolutely trouncing Sainz, and P4 in the race, even outpacing Leclerc in the Ferrari. This was the race we really needed to bring our confidence back up. Williams was now into 3rd in the Constructors, really showing there was great potential in this team. For the next race, we scored some solid points once again, and then we got to Silverstone. Experimenting around with setup meant we was out in Q2, and then for a wet-soaked race made the situation even worse without a comfortable setup for us. This of course meant we had one of our worst races of the season and in front of our home crowd, which was just awful for us. For the mid part of the season, we had some really good results, and so did Carlos. We had a great weekend at Spa, not the actual Spa but the racetrack, just missing out on the podium due to a penalty running wide. Then Sainz put it on pole at the next race in Hungary. The car was developing really well and showed some promise for the future. We eventually got to Brazil, the penultimate race of the season, and after a decent finish at Monza in the points and Mexico also just finishing behind Sainz, there was also a real battle for 3rd in the Constructors between us, Red Bull and Aston Martin. For the Drivers' Championship, it was a battle between Norris and Piastri, and Oscar leading the way going into Brazil. The weekend started well in the sprint, but the actual race is where it fell apart. With rain in qualifying catching us out meant we exited in Q2 alongside Oscar Piastri. The race, however, started much better, but the safety car eventually came out due to Leclerc spinning, and with the longest pit stop of my life, thanks to the Saubers, ruined a P7 at the time and dropped us down to 11th. As we were making our moves after the safety car, Norris looked comfortable near the front and closing the championship gap until his car decided to blow up, which gave the championship there and then to Oscar Piastri. As we finished in a solid P7, Oscar finished in P5 to lift his first championship. Alonso did win the race, and Albon getting 3rd for Red Bull meant the battle for 3rd in the Constructors was pretty much over for us. Abu Dhabi was now just about finishing on a high. In qualifying, we went into Q3 and Sainz put an amazing lap boasted well for the team. In the race, we had the best pace out of anyone, and then a red flag came out eventually because of a Red Bull spinning. After the restart, we was next to Sainz and battling for P4, but we unfortunately broke our front wing not just once, but twice on the back of him, misjudging the distance we had when we had to pit again and practically ended our race. Sainz ended up taking P4 and a great result for the team. As we finished that weekend, the end of the season was here, and our head-to-head with Sainz ended up with him just edging us out due to that final race. And with contracts coming up at the end of the season and us getting an offer from McLaren, I did however decide to stick with Williams and the team James Vowles has created, as we showed some great progress through the season and look forward to achieving more. Overall, our rookie season in F1 was very promising, but we really needed to iron out our mistakes for Season 2. For the start of Season 2, our goals were firstly to beat our teammate of Sainz, as we both decided to stay with the team. As well, I wanted to see progress at Williams and aim for that third in the Constructors and score some regular podiums, as the car wasn't too bad for this season. For driver transfers in Season 2, Yuki Tsunoda did get the axe from Red Bull and joined Aston Martin with their new Honda deal, replacing Fernando Alonso, with Liam Lawson making a return from the sidelines to partner Alex Albon at Red Bull. This looked promising, as our two rivals have now got new drivers. It might take a bit of time for them to get up to speed. As we eventually got to the first race at Australia, we showed some really good pace. However, it all unfolded in Q3 as we did a Maldonado and planted it in the wall at turn 7. Sainz did out-qualify us, but I felt we had some really good pace for Sunday. The start looked very promising, but we made a few positions and was just behind Sainz. But as we got to the pit stops, a slow stop from the boys at Williams put us in a direct path of the torpedo, Ocon. Coming out of the pits, he slammed into the side of us, breaking our floor. It was damage limitations at that point, and I managed to fend off Stroll to eventually get P10. The next couple of races after were very up and down as well, not just from me but Sainz. Japan, we had a great start to the weekend, but a mistake through Sector 1 and a crash with Stroll ended our race. And the same for Sainz at Canada. We had a very solid race, finishing in P5 just behind the Ferraris, but a spin from Sainz meant we was getting less and less points as a team. The battle for third was going to be a proper challenge with Red Bull. We eventually got to our home race, and like the season prior, it wasn't our best weekend. The car was showing great development, being second in theory, but we just didn't have the pace that weekend and was truly beaten by Sainz. We both got some really good points for Williams, but it wasn't a complete weekend from us. Sainz was really running away in the head-to-head, which we really needed to be turned around, and luckily we got a great chance at one of our best tracks. The Belgian Grand Prix, like last season, was one of our best races of the season, and we showed it once again, having a great sprint, getting in the top 3, and for qualifying we got a pole position for the first time in our career, with Sainz also in third. Unfortunately for us, it was a boring race. We practically led it from start to finish. Sainz did fall off in the race, but we ended up claiming our first podium of our career and first win. Williams' first win since Maldonado in 2012, which also put us into third in the Constructors. The next races leading up to the finale at Abu Dhabi was good and bad. Some races we beat Sainz and some we didn't. We were consistently outscoring Red Bull, which was really good. However, as one of my aims was to score more podiums, but the car not really correlating performance on track, that is when I decided to go into talks with McLaren for next season, as they were once again dominating the field. I felt the progress at Williams was a little too slow, and with a regulation change for next season could be a great opportunity to have the best car. As we got to Abu Dhabi, and with Lando Norris claiming his first title at Brazil, and Piastri having a bit of a horrid time this season, could mean a door is open for us. But we put all our focus on the final race of the season, and it went really well. Out-qualifying Sainz for the final time in P5, and with some luck in the race with a safety car and people being held up in the pits meant we came out near the front. We then overtook Tsunoda on the restart and had a battle with Max in the Ferrari for the win. In the end, we just about held on to claim our second win of the season, meaning we just about achieved every goal we had for the year, finishing third in the Constructors. We also beat Sainz in the head-to-head and managed to score a couple of wins for the season. However, Season 2 came to an end, and with the team not showing great progress with saving parts for the new regulations, we eventually came to the contract talks, and that is when we made our final decision for Season 3. And that final decision was to unfortunately leave Williams at the end of Season 2 and join McLaren. For the reasons earlier, I felt the car didn't progress enough last season, so I decided to make the move to the current champions to replace Oscar Piastri, who in turn decided to take our seat. And as we look at the car development for Season 3, we played the move of our entire career, just like Hamilton did in real life for Mercedes, as McLaren was still at the top and Williams dropped off in performance. We now had a championship winning car. Our aim for the season is to, of course, just to try match Lando, as he is the current champion and he has been at that team for a very long time. So as long as we can finish second in the championship and win the Constructors, I'll see that as a good first season, but I'm not going to give up from winning the championship. For driver moves, we had some pretty crazy moves for Season 3. We firstly had Paul Aron to replace Hadjar at RB. The big one was that Max Verstappen decided to leave the sport, presumably to go into endurance racing, which left a door open at Ferrari, and who other than the best driver on the grid to replace him, Lance Stroll. I guess now his dad has become the part owner of Ferrari and sold Aston Martin. That is the only reason I think that move would go on. But going into the first race at Australia, the whole weekend we had a bit of luck. Just a bit off the pace of Lando starting in P3, but after Leclerc had a great start, and we know it's tricky to overtake around here, I made the moves what needed to be done early on in the race to take the lead. Fortunately, this gave us a bit of a gap to Lando as he struggled to get through Leclerc, and as he was closing us down at the end of the race, we just about grabbed our third win of our career and first for McLaren. We didn't have the pace that weekend, but we got the maximum points needed. The two races after, we didn't really carry that luck over as we struggled to get to grips with the car at Japan and finished way behind in P3. And for Bahrain, we messed up in qualifying, but much better in terms of pace. We had a good start and caught up to Lando pretty quickly, but a lock-up from him and a possible intentional slam into the side of our car gave us serious damage, and we finished in P4, now 16 points behind him. But Canada was next, and it was our best weekend yet. Put it on pole for the second time of our career, and then leading it from start to finish to get our fourth win of our career. But the theatre of hell was up next, Silverstone. It should be a great race for us, but we had nothing but bad luck over the past few years. A mixed conditions qualifying did put us on the back foot in fourth, but still managed to beat Lando. For the race we had a tricky start, but the bad luck eventually came back, as Lando on the hanger straight tried to sneak his car around the outside on the grass, which resulted in a massive crash between us two and left him miraculously with minimal damage, but once again my car was completely ruined. It was damage limitations once again, and we managed to gather a point in the end, which may mean a lot at the end of the season. Then the next few races after, leading up to the penultimate race, were largely positive, having a massive swing back in the championship after being 33 points behind. A dominant weekend at Spa, gathering our fifth win of our career. Monza then saw us finish second to Leclerc, but a surprise DNF from Lando, which reduced the gap all the way down to 6 points, and finally for Mexico saw it swing in our direction with a great weekend beating Lando, and a battle between me and Leclerc for the win, and a bit of a risky move on the last lap saw us take our 6th win of our career, which put us 4 points ahead, as well as we managed to win the Constructors that weekend. But Qatar, the second to last race, was here, and this was a massive turning point in the championship. A great qualifying from us to get our third pole position of our career, but unfortunately for Lando, saw him get a 5-place grid drop for contact with Behrman, which dropped him down to 10th for the race. And the race, luckily for us, was very boring, leading it from start to finish, claiming our 7th ever win, with Lando finishing P5. The gap was 18 points in our favour going into Abu Dhabi. All we needed was a P5 finish if Lando won. There was also a mini regulation change on the durability for next season, which we managed to save a lot of resource points for, so it wouldn't be much of an issue in terms of saving parts, but our focus was now on the final race and our final chance to win our first ever title. Qualifying was tense but super close, starting P2, only 5 thousandths behind pole of Russell and 100th ahead of Norris. The race start was very tense, with not having a great one and being overtaken by Leclerc, dropping us down to P3 in the clutches of Lando. We didn't really have the pace of the top two and was under pressure from Sainz and Lando for a lot of the race, but I knew Lando needed to win the race for the championship, and as the gap was getting larger and larger from the top two, we eventually got to the final lap just hanging on to third, and we eventually crossed the line in P3 to claim our first world championship. an absolutely mega season, beating mine and everyone's expectations and showing we was championship material and we weren't going to stop there for the future. But Abu Dhabi was eventually over, and after our final celebrations for the season and Lance Stroll having the worst season ever at Ferrari, I knew McLaren was the team to take us further into the history books, and obviously I decided to stay with the team for next season. But would the new regulation change affect us going into season 4?